Just bear with me for a moment while this loads. Bear with me. All right. All right. There we go. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the New York Studio School's virtual evening lecture series. Tonight, we're very pleased to be presenting Hiroyuki Hamada on his work. I would like to thank Hiroyuki, and I would like to thank all of you for joining us, taking the time out and attending our virtual lecture series. The New York Studio School Evening Lecture Series is generously supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, the Robert Lehman Foundation, and many individual contributors. Please do consider making a donation during or after tonight's talk by clicking on the support button on our homepage at www.nyss.org. And then when you're there, just click on the donate button. Thank you, and you know, it's a difficult time for small art institutions like ours, and we're very grateful for any support that you might be able to extend. I will introduce tonight's speaker in just one moment, but I want to bring your attention to at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A button. Do feel free to click on that at any time while the presentation is going on, and you can enter in your comment or question. And we will leave time after the talk for questions, but Hiroyuki may like to field some of those while he's presenting as well. And if you're joining us on YouTube, you can enter in any comments or questions you have in the comment section, and we'll get those as well. Yeah, thanks again for joining us. It's a chilly evening outside, so I hope everyone is warm and safe. And so tonight's speaker is Hiroyuki Hamada. He was born in 1968 in Tokyo, Japan, and moved to the United States at the age of 18. Hiroyuki studied at West Liberty State College in West Virginia before receiving his MFA from the University of Maryland at College Park, which we were just discussing. Hamada has been included in numerous solo exhibitions throughout the United States, including at Lori Bookstein Fine Art in New York City, which is now Bookstein Projects in New York, Guildhall in East Hampton, New York, and most recently at T-Space in Rhinebeck, New York. He was the recipient of the New York Foundation of the Arts Grant in 2009 and the Pollock-Krasner Foundation Grant in 1998. Most recently, he was awarded the John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Foundation Fellowship in 2018. Hiroyuki's work is featured in Tristan Manco's Raw plus Material equals Art, Thames Hudson, and the artist lives and works in East Hampton, New York. So please join me in giving a virtual welcome to Hiroyuki Hamada.
Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate you invited me to speak here. And so I'm going to start with how I started. And I would show some images and describe how things developed, and so that's how it goes. And I'm going to just go ahead and share my screen. So I was born in Japan in 1968. I grew up in an average household in suburban Japan. As a child, I always liked making things, but I didn't realize at the time the potential of art to be a very special mode of communication which can reflect who we are as human species, where we are heading individually and as collectively, and or to simply recognize the mystery of being for what it is. My first significant encounter with art happened when I was at a community college in a small town in Wheeling, West Virginia, as Sam just talked about. That was a few years after my family moved to the U.S. In 1987 because of my father's job in steel industry. I was a rebellious teenager. My father, who worried about my aimlessness as a teenager, he thought it might be a good idea to for me to move to the States as he was moving, and we moved as a family. And the move to a foreign country was very interesting. I found out that our identities are not really based on what we think as ourselves. Our identities manifest within a certain framework, a framework of general norms, beliefs, and values prevalent in our societies mixed with our own ideas about those. We are, in a way, assigned certain identities based on those elements as much as we believe as who we are. So, for example, as I moved to a different society, my name was pronounced differently. My name is actually pronounced Hamada Hiroyuki. So the last name comes first in Japanese, and the first name comes after that. But I pronounce my name differently, and the name is attached to a generalized identity of an Asian person, which is different from generalized idea of an Asian person in Japan. In fact, I didn't recognize myself as an Asian person when I was in Japan. I simply recognized myself as a person. So the whole process of learning the language, being accustomed to how things are and so on, required me to build a whole new identity based on a different environment. And this process really helped me to understand that the order of our society is kept by rather artificial set of understandings, agreements, and common sense knowledge that are based on the history of the society as well as its basic structure. So our societies have frameworks particular to how we experience ourselves, each other, and our surroundings. So getting back to community college, I met an art teacher whose name was Carl Jacobson in one of the elective classes that I was taking. And this art teacher knew how to speak his visual language. He would draw and paint, and I felt his expression to be excuse me, genuine, profound, and moving. This was really mind-blowing for me. I was struggling to express myself with a new speaking language I was learning, and the visual language was direct, visceral, raw, immediate, and transcending. It transcended the culture, society, race, language, and the country, and so on. So this was very much shocking to me, and it gave me enough magnitude to pursue art with my life. It also gave me a sense of purpose. I found a place in a world where I often felt alienated, hopeless, and angry, for things seemed to be deceptive, and no one seemed to care or even notice. Let me. Well, actually, I have a picture of. This is one of the paintings done by Carl Jacobson. I was really, really taken by his ability to express narratives, the atmosphere, and the strength of mystery. So this was sort of my starting point. I wanted to see what I could do with visual elements myself. So I started with basic things, paper, pencil, charcoal. So I started to draw. I was constantly drawing, um, um, and I was also into photography. I was into black and white photography. That was I still take pictures, and I think I really learned about composition, how shapes could speak, lines, and basic about the elements. And another thing I was really into the figure drawing. I really liked taking figure drawing classes at the school and outside of the school, and it was really eye-opening to see human forms in as visual elements on paper. And so here's another drawing. So you can see I was playing with layers. I was playing with process. I would put down something and I would react to it, and that lead to something else, and it builds this structure that the process become the structure itself. And this I think when I started to do painting, I really pursued that process of building by following layers of reactions. And here's another painting. Looking back, I can really see that I was really interested in object-like quality of the painting. I really enjoyed textures. I really enjoyed how materials do surprising things. When one of the things I liked doing was using roofing tar. So this part, the black part, is a roofing tar, and there are a couple of different kinds I was using. And one kind that was runny, and the other one, this one was used do a layer underneath paint, and that would react to the paint, and it really does interesting things. Here's another really old piece. This is probably 1990, early 90s. And again, this one has layers. You can see that the surface is cracking, and the paint is discolored by the tar, and paint drips, and here's a piece that I did on wood. So this is a hollow core door. I cut the top off and closed the gap, and it's a relatively inexpensive light material. It stays pretty flat, and it allowed me to really uh, um, um, work with the material, the surface material. So you can kind of see um, little holes up here, and also I think from the early stages, I was seeing the painting as an object. So you can see that the edge is painted yellow, and this was meant to be seen from the side as well. Although I was really not conscious about um, sculptures at all. And another thing I was doing with the materials was that this is the same thing, hollow core door, but the surface is covered with burlap, and there's a layer of plaster on top of it. So there's interactions of layers, and you see staples, and the paints are peeling here and there. And again, there's a layer of tar underneath. So the colors are shifting in very, very subtle way. And here's another piece with surface being worked on. One of the things I started to do was I was using a spade bit, a tool to make holes, woodworking tool, and I was making holes onto these surfaces. And here's another piece, and you can see the hole. Initially, I had a couple of electric drills, and then I got 3, 4, 5 of them, and at some point I had to come up with way to organize and be a little intuitive about the process. And here's somewhere I can't. Okay, maybe it's in here. There's so this is what I ended up doing. I made this card, and I had these drills with different bits, and this allowed me to be sort of intuitive about using the tools, sort of being part of your hands. So you would reach out and make patterns on the surface. So this is a piece done by the method. And another thing I was doing was that I started to make paint. So this one is stained with the homemade paint. It's a mixture of solvent, wax, resin, and the tar. So it has this warm brownish tone. And this is a picture of the paint I made. And this one has a different kind of paint. I also made this pasty kind of mixture. It had much more wax in it. So basically, I was doing encaustic pieces. This one actually has some of the paint as well. So the some of you might know, but it's a very, very interesting material. You, depending on how you treat it, you can heat it up to make it matte surface, and you can polish it to make shiny surface. So like this one has um, really, really subtle layer of brownish paint paste um, um, on these sections, and some of the places are shinier than the others, and also it shows my interest in um, the piece as an object, and as you can see, they are starting to be uh, sort of like a wall hang sculptures. Um, this one as well, which was really interesting that I was not conscious about. I was doing painting or sculpture. I was just trying to explore. I was trying to see what I could do. And, but at some point, they just came out of the wall. This one is freestanding piece. Again, it has this homemade paint on the surface, and here's another one with the top part is stained with the liquid paint, and the bottom part is treated with the waxy paint. And here's another one. I think by this time the process is starting to be a little different. I was instead of just going in with blank beginning, just as I would face blank canvas, I had to have some basic idea about how it was going to be. So this one too, I guess the process of working with the surface and structures would give me ideas about different pieces. And I was also drawing constantly. That has been always the thing I do. And but as you can see, the shape and the basic idea is sculptural. I have the idea and I'm working toward it, but at the same time, the two-dimensional surface is totally spontaneous. I would work with the these shapes, these little imperfections that coming from the structure making. Here's a front view. It's been always a process of sculpture making on top of painting process. Here's another piece with the stained top. That's polished. The bottom part is the waxy paint. sorry that the pictures are not coming up big. Here's another one. You can really see that the I was using the tool intuitively to make this pattern sort of textural, and it's also a pattern. Here's another interesting piece. So this one was done with the waxy paint, but it was painted line by line. So you have this put together kind of feel. But this is really just a painted surface. Here's another piece. This is probably 2000. I can't even. I probably shouldn't say 2005, 7. I'm not really sure, but the pieces are starting to be bigger. This one had to be done in sections. It comes apart in 5 parts, and but you can really see that this is a really a painting on the side, and you go to the other side, it's a different painting there, and a lot of work. The plaster, so these pieces, like this one, was basically just grew out of the wall, and I was doing the same process. I was covering the wood with the plaster with burlap, and obviously it was too heavy, and I had to come up with a different material. And so this one is one of the first pieces I did with resin, and with resin you can preserve these little edges, and it does different things depending on what you mix in the resin. It acts like a wood, it acts like stone, and it acts like different things. And on the surface this is painted. Actually, it looks like a rusty metal, but it's acrylic paint with metallic powder suspended in it. So when you spray activator, it gives real patina, and it's a really interesting thing. I still use this paint here and there. Here's another. This might be the last one I did with plaster. It's probably 4 feet long, quite heavy, and here's a piece. This was done with resin. So when I was starting out with resin, I was experimenting with different kind of resin. So with this one, I tried 3 different kinds, and so that's how I built the surface, and then it was painted. Here's another piece with the waxy paint. And this was built with resin. I have a set of pictures that shows you a little bit about the material. So this is the resin I'm currently using. It's called Magic Sculpt, and what I do is I make sheets of um, resin, and I would sort of build the exterior, sort of like a exoskeleton. It's a visual thing, but at the same time, it's somewhat structural. Um, so they are covered and finished with sanding. Yeah. Oh, here's the that piece I did with rusty paint. But anyway, I just thought it would be interesting for uh, other sculptors. So this one was one of the first pieces that I did with pigmented resin, which I like to use right now. But the other part over here, this is painted with the same process. And so I've spent couple of decades making these pieces, and meanwhile I was keeping sketchbooks all the time. That had been a way to visually brainstorm and exercise my hand coordination in expressing my visual vocabulary. The ideas of sculptures often come from the process of making marks, and it allows me to be spontaneous, and it allows me to depth of perception and my recognition of my vocabularies and how they interact. And about 5 years ago, I started to use the ideas to make some of the drawings to make some prints, and along with the sculptures. And I eventually took a workshop in learning a black and white photography printing technique called piezoography. And it's basically inkjet printing technology, but it uses color printing heads for various shades of black so that it expresses the shades more organically. At least that's the idea. And these are ideas expressed in a two-dimensional form. And what I do is I would draw, and I would scan it, and I would finish it on a screen. And the most interesting thing was that when the ink hits the paper, it's a physical phenomenon, and it's really different from what you see on the screen. And expressing this quality of physicality was really challenging. It was sort of surprising because I was just thinking that if I can make these things on screen and print them, that'll be a pretty easy process. But it was really a humbling experience to really feel what the materials do in front of you. Um, and um, yeah, I can show some. Um, and having worked on these two-dimensional surface and working with the visual narratives of the object and surrounding, and it gave me an idea to go back to um, paintings. Um, and I started to paint again after 20 years of just working on sculptures. So this is one of the very first paintings I did. It's sort of similar to the print, but I'm incorporating the ways I was using paint on sculpture. And here's another one. Um, uh, it's hard to see the surface, but uh, really remembered the excitement of working with paint, seeing how one action would lead to something else, and that would lead to another organic momentum, um, and at the end, it manifests as this presence that's cohesive somehow. And um, when I was uh, when I was in graduate school, I bought big box of museum board, black museum board, 40 by 60, and I was gonna paint on them, and I always knew that I had it in my storage, and so when I started to paint, I took those big pieces of painting ground and started to paint on them, and this is one of the pieces done on the museum board. Um, uh, this is very unusual with color. Um, I, uh, I do like colors in other people's paintings. I love seeing how other people use um, colors, the emotional expressions, and how they interact. And but when I paint, I I seem to cover them up. Um, I don't know if I had anything underneath with this one, but well, okay, for this one for sure. That um, yeah, I had a. This was blue, but I mostly um, painted over. I guess I like to work with the structural part of the uh, building the surface uh, more so than um, what the colors can do. This one actually has quite a bit of colors. Um, but again, you can see that the paints are uh, chipping, cracking, and dripping, and um, it's really fun, you know. um, um, and it's real. Um, um, you do something and you react to it, and this is a dialogue um, as a structure, and at the end it means something. There's a um, authentic quality to painting process, and the results as well. Um, the detail shot of the last piece. Here's another detail. You can see that I would venture with the colors, and they kind of disappear, but you still see them. You still traces, and yeah, and um, and having understanding of what paintings uh, can do also deepen my understanding of what sculpture could do. I really felt for the first time that I could truly appreciate shapes in space, the power of forms structuring itself in three-dimensional space. Um, this is probably a major attraction of sculptures as an established art form for many people, but I really didn't realize it. It was really odd. It was uh, after I've done with those paintings, I had this project, um, um, local museum was offering a show, and I wanted to do try a sort of larger sculpture that was a little more complicated. So this was the drawing, the starting point, and it was a little. Um it was bigger, and it was a little complicated. So I made a maquette just to get the size, and um, before I cut into the material. I usually um, um, just go in with the material with sculptures. Um, so um, you can kind of see uh, how I do this. The basic structure is made with wood, foam, and here's a picture of um, piece being shaped, um, and edges are finished with plaster. Um, I use this uh, material. It's called Durabond. It's a joint compound. I think the contractors would use for walls. The good thing is about it is that it doesn't crack, and it allows you to do skim coating on the surface. So it's a perfect material for shaping something like this. Um, and So I really realized when I was working on this one, I really felt the shapes um, have such power. I mean, um, this might be the moment when I really became a sculptor. um, so I was sort of debating with myself, maybe I should paint this. But no, it was really, it was doing its own thing. This material was really harmonious with um, the shapes in the space. Um, is uh, Um, so it was really interesting. Um, 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 we work with this limitations imposed by a given framework, and we become so good at operating within the framework, and we sometimes fail to see ways that are available beyond the framework. And this is, I think, is a tricky matter for practicing artists. We want to be good at operating, but we don't want to be blinded by the framework either. And the framework we choose is chosen because it helps uh, us to connect us to our recognition that liberate us as we work on these things. And with renewed understanding of how things are in my studio, this was the piece after that piece. And this was actually interesting because I was it came out of a painting. I was working on this painting, and I went back to finish it. And this is a finished state. But while I was painting on this thing, I had to abandon the painting and go make this thing. So it was interesting. This painting was actually finished very, very recently, after a couple of years of finishing the sculpture. Here's another um, piece in progress, and this one was actually I tried a print based on drawing, and uh, I couldn't. I just couldn't get it right, and I decided to do the sculpture, and it took a few years to actually finish this. But again, it was very interesting that um, having these different outlets uh, makes it a little more interesting and a little more productive. Makes me think, really. And uh, here's a piece that I had at a show that just closed at T Space in Rhinebeck, near Hudson area. And the venue was built by an architect, Stephen Hall, and it was meant as a um, electricity-less building. Um, so it has skylights, and the light coming in, and it shapes the interior, and you can have the outside elements. You can see the shadows of the leaves, and the lighting changes as the weather changes. And it was a really interesting space to work with. And it's got a high ceiling on one side, and lower ceiling on the other side. And oh, by the way, this is one of new pieces I finished recently, and this piece was really interesting. It um, it combined a lot of things that I was collecting um, in my studio. So this part over here is, I believe this is the marquette for the one of the pieces that the piece. Um, where did it go? This one, and I I guess I like the shape, and when I saw it next to this the found object, I think I found it on a beach, and something clicked, um, um, and I came up with this part. And then when I had it on the wall, I saw the top part, um, and um, I've kind of went back with the method of the surface building. Um, these lines and these holes, the things I was doing a decade or two ago, and things kind of merged um, in the studio organically. It's really interesting that way. Um, and this is the other side of the space. It's got a little window, and you can see the outside, sort of being part of the inside space, and um, is uh, more recent piece. And as you can see, that I'm pretty comfortable with the idea of combining sculptural element and painted surface, and older technique, these holes. Um, um, it's good to have a lot of tools. It makes it more fun. And um, um, so when I started out, I believed um, um, that art can speak for all of us, and it can unite us and ground us to um, fundamentally humane and harmonious ways to each other, and to the environment. And in a way, I still think that that is absolutely true. And I wholeheartedly believe that that art saved my life as um, uh, from being a self-destructive youth. And art can certainly make some of us live, and gives us ways to appreciate life. And um, but as I grew older, I started to realize that there is much more to what is going on in our world. And this is a lot to do with our social framework we operate in. The work I do in my studio is a work of connecting dots. I sometimes feel my ways around to see how visual elements relate to each other within their surroundings. I strive to find cohesive wholeness that can encompass dynamics that capture fundamental essence of matters. It is an attempt to grasp many layers and dimensions piled up in a massive complex in a way that can imply what it is to live. Engaging in such a practice for a long time has forced me to expand my ways of perceiving my actual surroundings as well. I feel that in order to explore fundamental reality of matters, we must expand our frame of mind. Facts are not um, confined in a predetermined narrow circumstances. If we fail to feel and perceive the whole picture as it is, with its details and momentums, we also fail to grasp the profoundness of our relationships to our surroundings. If we don't know the context in which our time and space um, materialize, we misjudge our current situation, which of course prompts wrong actions, which often do not improve the situation. So things got complicated as I started to see things outside of my studio with my studio eyes. And first, I realized that there's a framework in our society which functions to maintain an authoritarian hierarchy. And I understood that there are artificial limitations. Today, the richest three people own the bottom half of the wealth of the United States. I recognized that this framework of wealth and power is very much detrimental to our pursuit of humanity, and ultimately, it is also detrimental to our artistic pursuit as well. Because if some of us try to imagine ways beyond this framework, it could be considered as a thought crime. And I really started to connect dots, and I learned that the United States was founded on a stolen land, stolen from the American Indians by slave owners who were the founding fathers. Those rich, powerful people who funded the system employed vague words such as freedom, justice, humanity to protect their own wealth and power. When they spoke of freedom, it was about ways to pursue their financial gain. When they spoke of justice, it was about protecting such freedom. When they spoke of humanity, it was about their own privileged positions within the social structure. This, I believe, is the basic history which has formed the material context that surround us today, and it propels the social imperatives as well. It creates lucrative colonial wars in which weaker countries with non-capitalist economy are demonized as uncivilized barbarians so that they can be starved, bombed, and colonized. It creates corporate political spectacle in which two moneyed political parties orchestrate ritual gladiator battles by which winners are always the same corrupt system of money and violence. It creates dead slave economic system in which the table is always tilted for those who are already wealthy and powerful. It creates a police state by which three people are killed by police officers every day, and massive amount of people are criminalized and incarcerated so that they can be exploited and subjugated, while creating an atmosphere of fear, hopelessness, and obedience. Some issues are so acute, as we know, that we scream in pain, saying that if we can get rid of this pain, we will do anything. There are people who are dying of treatable diseases, or they get treated and they go broke. There are people who don't have houses. There are people who are deeply in debt for getting education. There are enormous injustice done by law enforcers of various kinds to perfectly innocent people. And here comes the politicians, political activists, corporate NGOs, and concerned privileged people who strive to perpetuate the unjust system by making deals. If you vote for so and so, it'll all go away. If you donate for this or that, you will save this or that. We, the artists, are so good at working within the framework of our own pursuits. But I would like to say that we're also blessed with the ability to connect dots and go beyond the framework to be humans. Well, thank you. That's it.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Hiroyuki.
I'm gonna stop the share.
Sure, that was beautiful. Uh, we, we definitely have some questions coming in, and um, yeah, I'm just absorbing your statement there. Um, Thank you for sharing. Um,
Thank you.
so I'll just start going through some of the questions. Susan Susan asks, "What is the source for your shapes, and do they signify anything to you?"
Well, um I started decades ago. I started to draw and I started to develop visual vocabularies, and they grew. And I'm in touch with those things, and I probably have feel for certain shapes and certain connections, but I really I really don't. Um, um, I try not to guess even, because when I started, it was really important for me to pursue sort of like the quality that's in between the lines, something I can't pinpoint, but it's there, but um, it's affecting us. I wanted to sort of manifest profound mystery of some kind. So um, I don't know if that's an answer or not, but
So the shapes are really just through a searching organic process, and they.
right, it comes out of the process of making my path as a person who worked on these things, and um, yeah.
Do you think of at one point you mentioned a sculpture as being kind of like an exoskeleton? Do you do you think about that a lot with the interior, the exterior, and like, or as a vessel versus not being a vessel? Um,
um I don't know. But sometimes the process that involves the making, um, it really reveals interesting dynamics. I get ideas from those things, and but in terms of the content, I really don't um, analyze too much. Sometimes people will say certain things. This looks like this or that, and I would wonder a little bit, and then but I stop because my process is I would go to the studio, and I would try to empty myself, and I will try to feel. I'm really passive that way. I almost try to be um, the force of um, trying to show the dynamics that are uh, inherent to the shapes and things as I recognize them.
um,
Does that make sense?
yeah, I think it does actually, a lot of sense. Anne Marie says, incredibly fascinating body of work, and would love to know what led you to start experimenting with tar. And she thinks the effect is really rich.
Right. It's a extremely interesting material, and um, Um, I was not trained as a sculptor. I was a painter who wanted to paint on with objects, basically. So I went to hardware store. I, I found the door. I found the foam. I found the plaster, and the roofing tile was there. So when I was experimenting with the uh, surface, that was one of the first thing I noticed, and of course there are other artists who have worked with those materials, and so it is a fascinating material. I haven't worked with that for a while. I might re-examine. I have the homemade paints that I use, so I've been using those. And yeah, it's I should look into it as I'm painting more lately.
Um, Valerie asks, she says, your consistent connection to the object is a wonderful way to communicate, and it definitely speaks to her. Compositionally, do you feel your 2D work is vignette oriented as a narrative? In other words, what guides you as you place the object in a two-dimensional atmosphere?
I mean, it allows the visual narrative on two-dimensional surface. So I would place something, and that will interact with other things, and so naturally, I tend to do that. And but I could also work on installation. I could, you know, um, um, work with sculptures that way as well. And there are so many things to do. um, um, but with paintings, I really do enjoy the narrative elements. And it's really I can't overemphasize how interesting it is to uh, paint. You come up with one thing, and that leads to something else, and at the end, you have this um, dynamics that says something. The dynamics itself is the essence, and it just happens through the process. So yeah, I I really enjoy that.
An anonymous person is asking a very straightforward question. Could you share the brand name of the magic resin you use?
Oh, well, that product is called Magic Sculpt, and I don't even know who makes it. It's um, there's a place in New York City um, uh, called Complete Sculptor, and they carry that. And I always buy in a bigger buckets, and it's a lot of craft people use them um, as well. They come in smaller batches, and they come in colors as well. It's and have used other resin materials as well. The one I liked was called Mass Epoxy. Um, um, yeah.
Um, okay. Valerie is asking if you could please your please can you please repeat your very last statement as a call to artists? You were saying, quote, we the artists work in our own pursuits. We connect the dots, go beyond to blank.
Oh yeah. Well, I was saying that um, working within the framework is one thing, but we also connect dots, and the dots could be outside of the framework, and we are also very good at doing that. And this is, I think, very important in a society where things are contained and we are told that this is how things are, but we as artists, we can question the framework. We could go beyond um, the framework by connecting dots. Um, yeah.
She says, I want to remember this statement. Thank you Your presentation was so powerful.
Thank you.
And Shari Mendelson, who was actually just speaking in our show, in our series recently.
Yeah, that was a really nice talk. Thank you.
She says, I love your forms, and it was so interesting to see how they are made. I've wondered for years. And I have a couple more comments. Raymonda says, I find that your last pieces look very different, both in material and shape. Are you wanting to find a meeting point between sculpture and painting? And then she also asks, if you think your father saw something in Western education that would be helpful to a rebellious young person. So
right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I also became a father, and I have a teenager, and yeah, I don't know. But I mean, Japan has been a part of the Western hegemony for quite a while, so the differences are not as big as um, you would think. And but for me, the biggest thing was that I came across art, came across studio practice, and it really opened up my ways of how I relate to the society. And yeah, and I think I was prompted by the fact that I couldn't speak English um, um, that well when I encountered it. And I came across art really late as well. I didn't grow up with art, and my hands are good. I like making things, painting, and that I was that kind of kid, but I didn't really understand that art can be like literature. Art can be like poems and movies, and so when I saw it happening in front of me when I met the teacher, it was really shocking. And yeah, what was the question?
she was asking about your last pieces that you showed. She says they look very different.
Right.
Are you wanting to find a meeting point between sculpture and painting?
I think I'm a little more comfortable about going back and forth, because I feel like I have little more understanding about paintings and sculpture by away from the painting and going back to it. It really made me realize that I don't have to stick with certain things, and I feel a little more adventurous about finding things in found objects, for example, and combining paintings and sculptures. And so I think um, there's something going on, which is exciting. Always exciting to observe uh, in my studio. I let them happen. I enjoy. I observe, and I go with them, and I try to learn from uh, what happens.
Joe is asking if you're he says, how has your profession affected raising your son? Does he have an interest in becoming an artist as well?
Oh, he's
That's
probably
a good
watching it.
question right there.
Um,
Maybe
I
just
don't
make
know.
it happen.
Well, I have two sons, and both of them are interested in making things, I think. One of them is into skateboarding as well. And it's very interesting. He finds artistic expression in skateboarding as well. He talks about it as if it's a form of art. And so that's very interesting. Um, I think I'm learning from what they're doing. The other kid, he likes to make things, and his room looks like a shop, and so um, um, I brought them to my studio when they're smaller, and um, they do things in my studio here and there. You know, if they like to do more, I'm totally happy to. Yeah. Um, yes.
Well, thank you, Hiroyuki. That was thank you for sharing your journey with us. It was really, really interesting, and it does seem like there's some exciting things really happening. So I'm excited for you. Um, uh, but yeah, is there anything else you would like to say? Or just like
No, I just would like to thank you know, the people who came to hear me speak, and I really do like to share what I do, and I always enjoy exchange with other artists, and so I really enjoyed, and I do wish um, you know it was in person, but yeah, we do what we can, and thank you so much.
yeah. Well, we'll have to figure out sometime in the future. I'm just double checking that there aren't. Um, Joseph says thank you, and he he says it was a great talk from him and Lori. And
Thank you.
um, I think that's it. So yeah, thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure. It was great to have you in the series, and I look forward to our next meeting.
Great, great. Thank you so much.
Okay, have a good night.
Yep. Good night. Bye bye. Thank you.